Welcome back to the Suicide Prevention Lady podcast. Today's episode is part 2 of my conversation with Jen Butler, the writer, comedian, author, and someone who knows a little bit what it's like to carry big feelings in a world that doesn't always make room for them. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, go do that. It's not going to make any sense if you start in the middle of this conversation. There we laid the foundation for everything you're about to hear. Now, in the second half, Jen and I talk about what happens after you finally say, I need help. We unpack the messy, nonlinear path to healing, the pressure to have your story wrapped in a pretty little bow, and how she turned her pain into a book that helps other sensitive souls feel seen. We laugh, we get deep, and we keep it real because healing doesn't always have to be polished to be powerful. Now, here is a little bit of a teaser. The beginning of this episode is really funny, but you're going to be confused for a second. We had a miscommunication, and it was funny enough that I decided to leave it in. Welcome back to the Suicide Prevention Lady podcast, where we make intervention easy. I am your host, Dr. Rikki Turner. I am a suicide intervention expert. Please take note, I am the thinky kind of doctor and not a medical professional. So please do not take anything you hear in this episode as medical advice. Here's Jen.
So
you're writing a book.
That's where now?
You were writing a book in the conversation. What?
Wait, what? Fucking what?
Maybe let's this part in because it's so funny.
Man, I felt like I was like having a really profound moment, and you go, "You were writing a book." Was I? I did. Am I now? I don't understand the question.
I'm currently writing a book. I think I interrupted your story as you were just getting to the point where you were going to write the book.
No.
You were searching for the right. You were reading the experts' opinions of everything, but not the lived experiences of people.
Yeah, and it actually ties in really well to our funny haha moment just now, because what actually inspired the book is I was with the partner that I now have. He's a delightful humanoid, and we've been together for 7.5 years. So we were probably together for about 6 months at that point. And I wrote him a 13-page, double-sided, typed, unsolicited manual on how to not trigger me.
I love that.
I thought, this is fucking brilliant. What a gift I'm giving him. Here's how you
are
keep me happy. Yeah, I'm such a giver, right? Like, so thoughtful. So I gave it to him. He read it. He needed a little time to process. And I was like, I don't know why he needs time to process. I've just told him exactly what to do.
Literally gave him an instruction manual.
Yeah. And for my big kid job, I'm a technical writer. So this is what I do for a living. I'm good at it. Okay. It was really well written. And he said something to me that I don't know if anyone at that point had really said, which was no. And I was like, excuse the fuck out of me. Yeah. I mean, no. He was like, well, you're asking me not to be myself. And how about instead we just do our best each day, knowing that we probably will accidentally trigger each other's stuff, but then we can work through it together.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that just sounds disgustingly healthy, and I hate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what we did, and I realized, like, oh, I thought, again, I was such a giver, giving him this 13-page, double-sided, typed, single-space manual on how to not trigger me. And in reality, I was trying to make his world smaller too, and trying to get him to walk on eggshells. And he's a dad to 2 kids. And that was really helpful for our relationship, because essentially he didn't need a 3rd child.
Right.
At that point in time, he had a 3 and a 5-year-old. He's trying to help them learn to wipe their ass. He doesn't need to help me not get my feelings hurt. It was a precious, adorable thing. A good, A for effort, Jen, past Jen. But what I realized was I had this big, I don't know if disparity is the right word, but there was this huge distance for me between different emotional states. Whenever I was really activated or suicidal or deeply depressed or panicky or any of those, versus when I felt a little more grounded and felt okay. Both of them felt like their own separate realities, And whenever I was in one, I would pretty much discount the other. And that was really challenging as well, because I felt like I had these different parts of myself, these different aspects that weren't communicating.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a really big moment for me that sparked probably the most powerful part of my healing experience was inspired by my partner, because I was having a suicidal episode. He was about to go to his AA meeting, and I was trying to get him to fill me, to fill my heart, to fill this endless void. And I was trying to pull him into the black hole. And I was talking about wanting to die and all this stuff. And, we've been dating for 6 months, and he's probably like, what the fuck have I gotten myself into?
Yeah.
But he sat me down and he was like, my best friend killed himself 10 years ago. This is not something I fuck around with. And I promised myself that I would never, what he was talking about, a past relationship. He had a romantic relationship as well, that he had promised himself he would never get an unhealthy relationship dynamic again, where it was like really codependent and all that. And so essentially he told me that I needed to figure it out. I needed to get help or do work on this, because what he had seen in the 6 months we had been together was me just staying stuck and really, really circling the drain of victimhood and trying to just pull everyone down with me. And so the very next day, I reached out to my then sponsor and I was like, I want to redo the 12 steps, but I want to do it around suicidality.
Ooh.
Because at that point, I was sober. I wasn't drinking or taking pills, and I had gotten the disordered eating into a really balanced, lovely place of intuitive eating. And I was like, oh, I'm healed. But, I still want to die a lot of the times. And I was able to realize that suicidality for me had become its own addiction, because me planning to leave, me planning to die, would give me the same sense of relief that perhaps an addict who was planning their next fix. Because whatever uncomfortable feeling I was feeling, I could go, oh, I'm going to start envisioning the ways that I could die. And that's going to give me some sense of that. Maybe it's oxytocin, or I don't know what sort of chemical reaction is happening in my body, but it's like, oh, at least I don't have to deal with this then. And I remember my partner saying to me, this was like the big moment. I remember he said, I'm not going to introduce you to my children if you're just going to off yourself in a year. So he's like, that would break their hearts, and I'm not going to do that to them. And I promised myself I would never get in an unhealthy relationship dynamic again. So for the first time ever, someone set a standard for me and held me accountable to being an adult. All the other times, everyone was so afraid to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And I would have these big emotional reactions. Once I started, because for a long time I was so internal, but once I started to feel my feelings, and it was like I was a toddler feeling my feelings. I just wasn't an adult. I didn't know how to handle emotions in an adult way, whatever that really means. But, I didn't know how to healthily handle emotions. And so people were really afraid to say the wrong thing because they thought I would kill myself. Yeah. And so I had unknowingly manipulated the world around me to walk on eggshells until I got with my partner, who was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I have children to take care of. If you want to be in our lives, I'm not saying that you need to heal suicidality, and not saying, because that might not be something you can control, but do everything you can within your power to work on this and to heal and, figure out what's behind it, because his heart had been broken by his best friend killing himself.
Yeah.
10 years prior. So he's like, I'm not going to fall in love with someone just for them to leave me and my children.
Right.
And I remember that night, of course, my reaction, rather than being like, okay, sweetie, I took it as rejection. I took it as, this isn't fair.
I literally I had my finger down. This is how I remember to say something. Like, I have to put my finger down or I won't remember it. I don't know what it is about this.
That's so cool.
But I literally had my finger down going, okay, now how did you react to this with the rejection sensitivity?
Yeah. So he left to go to his AA meeting, which also was another amazing power move, because he's like, I'm going to go and do this thing that I need to do to take care of myself. I'm not going to sit here while you're spiraling this drain. And I feel like it could come across as him being really harsh, but he's had always been and continues to be this incredibly loving, supportive, compassionate person. And he knows how to set a boundary. And I had never had that happen before. So for someone to say, I need to go fill my cup and I need to take care of myself, and you need to make a plan for how, I mean, it's almost like if you were dating an alcoholic and you finally say, this has got to change.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get help.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was that intervention moment. So he left to go to his AA meeting, and I'm left like crying on the apartment floor, and I mean wailing and cursing to whom it may concern. You know, I don't know if it's God or a simulation or Bob Ross or who's up there. You know, it's like
definitely Bob Ross.
It's Bob Ross. When things are going well, it's Bob Ross.
Yeah.
So I was just wailing and begging of, please let me keep him. Like, please let me keep him. And I don't know why I felt called to do this, but I filled the bath with cold water and I went and got a bunch of ice. And this was before ice baths were cool. I put a bunch of ice into the tub, and I got in the tub and I dunked my entire body under. And I came back up. And I remember looking up at the ceiling thinking, maybe there's some God creature up there. Maybe there's a higher self. Maybe there's something. And I just said, teach me how to live. Please teach me how to live. Please teach me how to be a human. And I'm like weeping and barely breathing because I'm like, this is so unfair, because I really felt like I was stuck in this. And then now in life, people are starting to try to hold me accountable. And I'm like, how do I even get there? I don't understand. So maybe the reading of the books and the journaling on my own, maybe that level of introspection has its time and place, but that I needed to heal through relationship, and I needed to actually get help from others. So that was when the next day I reached out to my sponsor and we decided to do the 12 steps on suicidality. And I did the deepest dive on 12 steps ever. And I got to step 4, which is writing down all the people you're resentful at and any anger that you're holding on to. I know the actual step, but at this moment, I'm like, I forget what the actual step is.
Yeah.
But essentially, you write down all the people you're pissed off at, all the resentments you've held. I wrote down 315 people, and 75. Thank you, but that's also a lot of resentment. That was a lot. I was like
a lot of resentment. Yeah.
I was angry at this chick from when we were 9 years old because she did better in gymnastics than me. That bitch.
That's fair. How dare she?
How dare she? And she was supportive of me. I'm like, what?
Oh,
I remember
no,
she was so. You can't be both. You cannot be pretty and good at gymnastics and supportive of me. Get out of here.
Right. Yeah. Know your place. Come on.
Yeah. So there were 75 people on this list, and they were primarily women who I thought were prettier than me or fitter than me or had more money than me or were more successful than me. Yeah. It was my jealousy list. Most of these women I didn't even know. And I remember my sponsor saying, mark out the word jealousy and write admiration.
Oh.
And it was like this immediate psychic change for me, which I'm so grateful for, because a lot of stuff in a self-healing journey is not immediate. It takes so much effort and rewriting work. But in that moment, it shifted for me. And she was saying that having jealousy of these people is coming from a place of lack and a scarcity mindset. Whereas if I instead admire them for the work that they've done, then that comes from a place of, rather than you have success, so I cannot have it. It's you have success, you've worked so hard, that really inspires me.
Yeah.
Changed my life to start looking at life that way. So whenever, I talked earlier about comparing my messy behind the scenes to the highlight reels of others, when I found myself in that comparison trap, I would be like, okay, what is it that I feel jealous of with this person? And can I admire it instead? And that admiration is like, rather than me ostracizing myself away from them or making them other, I'm able to say we as like a collective, can do this thing. Wow, you were so successful at this, or you've worked really hard to get really fit, or whatever it is. Maybe I can do that too.
Mm-hmm.
So working through the 12 steps with complete rigorous honesty. And of course, I was also working through therapy at the time, and I was learning lots of different emotional regulation techniques. I didn't even know what that was. Mm-hmm. I didn't know about nervous system regulation, but I was open to learning. So it's like I really turned on the beginner's mindset. And while I don't go to AA meetings anymore, at that point in time, I did 90 meetings in 90 days so I could be surrounded by recovery every day. So in those 90 days is when I worked through those 12 steps, and I went to meetings every day, and I was just so fucking dedicated because I was like, I got to figure this out. And I started to actually get relief from suicidality, and it started to be lifted from me. And that's a fucking miracle to me. Like, I know that I'm in recovery from alcoholism and addiction and disordered eating and yada, yada. Cool. But suicidality has been with me for pretty much my whole life, at least since I was a teenager, possibly earlier. So the fact that I have relief from that now, it used to be chronic. It used to be with me constantly. I was fighting myself all the time to stay alive every single day. And I wanted to want to live, but I just didn't have that. That just wasn't innate in me. And then now, the extent of suicidality I experience might be like a whisper in the wind on like a PMS day, right? Yeah. So I feel it outside and I'm like, nah, and that's it. And I'm able to kind of just let it flow through me and let it pass away. Whereas before I would get so hijacked, and now I'm able to just be like, hey,
yeah,
bye.
Yeah, not welcome here. See you later.
So believe it or not, I don't do the not welcome here. I actually invite it in. So I'm not gonna be able to show you this tattoo because I decided to wear this really sexy like onesie thing. I don't know if it's called a onesie, but those things that like it buttons down in my crotch.
Yeah, it's a bodysuit.
Bodysuit, yeah. Okay, so it's gonna. You're not gonna be able to see it. I have this fantastic tattoo that has.
You've muted yourself.
Did I fix it?
Yeah.
Okay. I muted myself. You can keep that in if you want. I really don't care. So. Okay. Yeah, we're just all shit shows. So I have a tattoo that I really want to show it to you. No, I can't. You just can't see it. It's not allowed because bodysuits. I would take the bodysuit off, but then I'm just going to show full nip, and then this is going to go in a totally different direction. Your viewers are just Oh God. So I've got a tattoo of Buddha sitting there on a meditation cushion drinking tea, and then across from him is another cushion with tea, and it's empty. And the whole concept is Buddha inviting Mara to tea. And Mara can mean a lot of things, and I'm not super fluent with Buddhism, but this concept I really loved. Mara can be fear, or it can be depression, or it can be any of those things that we fight or avoid. And again, like you wrote down, feel the feelings. That's also what I learned with depression and suicidality. My biggest issue was whenever they came up, I would constrict, I would restrict, I would panic, I would fight. Oh no. Oh no. Instead, I started to learn to like relax my body into it and say, the sentence I like to say was this too. This is welcome too. Okay. Now that can be a really scary thing to do, right? Of like, wait, what? I'm allowing these feelings in, but aren't they bad feelings? I don't think so.
They're just feelings.
They're just feelings. And the thoughts are just thoughts. Mm-hmm. And by actually sitting and breathing and feeling the physical sensations in my body, because that was wild. I didn't know you had to feel the feelings physically. Yeah. What is this shit? I just wanted to think them. I wanted to intellectualize them.
I'm so glad you're saying that, because so many people do intellectualize and they're not. Yeah. And so it ends up being repressed. And it's like, no, where do you feel that in your body? What is going on right now? Like, I feel prickly in my chest, and I feel like I can't get air in. And why are my arms tense? And, like, feel the feelings. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, that's exactly it. And so with suicidality and with depression, because I still have depressive episodes, but rather than panicking when they come and thinking, oh no, I'm going to drown, I'm never going to escape, I'm able to look at the data that I've collected from being my own research project and doing this healing work for over 10 years and go, no, this will pass. I know that this storm will lift. That's all it is a storm. Mm-hmm. And I've learned to sit still in that discomfort and breathe through it and be kind to whatever part of myself is reacting in that way. Because clearly, whenever I was really tiny and I had these big feelings, I didn't either feel safe enough or simply wasn't equipped to handle them or process them or know what they meant. And so I just held them in. And so there were certainly parts of me that still acted like I was 6 years old and wanted to bash my head against a wall because nothing else felt. I couldn't even comprehend anything more mature than that to do. So all of these different things, like inviting Mara to tea or saying this too, like, you're welcome here too. Hello, old friend.
Yeah.
I'm not going to react to you. I'm not going to fight you. I'm just going to sit here and see you.
Yeah.
These little tips and tricks that some of them I collected from different resources and have kind of absorbed and translated into something that made more sense to me. But in other instances, I had to create little tricks to help was almost like course corrections for my mind whenever I was getting off course or emotionally was getting off course or was reacting in a really big way. And so I started to actually keep track of these. And the way that I did that was, like I was saying earlier, I felt like I had these deep emotional states where I was really, really activated, or the volume was turned way the fuck up on those. And then there were the other times when which was few and far between at first, but happens more now, which was I'm grounded, I'm not reacting, I'm responding. But I felt like they were separate parts of me, like I couldn't connect those parts. So when I was in the freak out moments, I started to write letters to future Jen.
Love that.
I started to say, here's how I feel. Here's what I fucking think. Here's what I'm pissed about. This is so stupid. What sort of bullshit are you going to try to say back to me about how, like, oh, everyone is love. Yeah, fuck you. You're like saying all that, right? And then I would go back whenever I was in a little more of a grounded place where I could actually respond. And I would respond. And then whenever I was back in that state again, that really reactive state, I could go and read that conversation and continue to add to it. I did this over the course of 5 years from all the different really intense emotional states and when I say intense emotional states, for me, if I'm at a place where I feel so reactive that I want to like shave my head again or move to the woods to become a bog witch, although that does sound really great, or I want to break up with my boyfriend who's actually an incredible person, when I'm feeling reactive, no matter what the emotion is, it could be super fucking happy. I could be like, I am the king of the world.
Yeah.
I am better than everyone. Jesus, fuck, you guys are so lucky to know me. And then likely if I keep redlining at that, I'm going to end up at the burnout where I'm completely exhausted, but the volume is turned up on that as well.
Yeah.
So in any of those reactive states, I would write down how I was feeling. I would ask questions for future Jen to answer. And so through that, I was able to start trying out different tips and tricks on how to regulate myself, on how to maybe bring the volume down a little bit whenever I was in those reactive states, and ultimately how to stay still in the discomfort, befriend the discomfort, and not blow up my life and learn how to be human. Yeah. And so I compiled that in 5 years. And then for a year, I used it. Like I compiled it, organized it. I added doodles, and there's humor, of course, because I'm me.
Right.
And I organized it in this really unique way that I've never seen another book organized, and I love it, and it was really helpful for me. The table of contents is organized kind of on like a 1 through 10 scale, but we'll call it a 0 through 11 for the people who fall off the 1 through 10 scale, because I feel things so intensely. My boyfriend's at like 4, 5, 6. That's where he lives life. He's just kind of like just cruises, super stable. Yeah. And I'm more of like, whee! Yeah, with the roller coaster. So the table of contents is organized with each of those emotional states saying like, hey, read this when, and there's some examples of how it might feel, what you might be thinking based on my experience, but then also a little spot for people to add their own. So the goal is being able to settle in and say, what is it that I'm feeling? How am I feeling? And then going directly to that section. Mm-hmm. And there's little subsections, little bite-sized pieces that are written specifically for that frame of mind in mind. Because when I'm at a meltdown, when I feel like I'm not sure if I want to be alive, I don't need someone being like, da, 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 funny jokes, right? I don't need 3 pages of like some giant meaningful story. I just need little chunks of text that are helping me stay on earth.
Yeah.
And then the different sections are written in a slightly different way based on that mindset. And so I used it for a year, making little tweaks, and then I decided to share it with the world. And it's not me saying, oh, I'm on the outside looking in, here's what you need to do. It's me saying, I couldn't find a guidebook on how to human.
Yeah.
So I made one. And here's what works for me. There's also pages that are blank in there for people to write what works for them. Because ultimately the call to action is for people to start having that curiosity with themselves and to create their own sort of guidebook so that they can learn how they specifically need to navigate this experience in order to stay on Earth.
Yeah.
That's my book.
I love it. It sounds like to me, so I've probably given you the spiel before, but the audience of my podcast, the intended audience is for people who have people in their lives who are suicidal and they just don't know what to do to help them. And so they listen to get tips and to find out what to do and what not to do. And like, how on earth do I help this person that I don't understand what's going on?
Oh my gosh, perfect.
Right.
There's an entire supporters section in here. So this book has a section for supporters, and there's little call outs throughout the book that are like, hey, supporter, here's a way to look at this, and here's how you can support, or here's some ideas of what you can say or do. Also, please fucking take care of yourself, which is like one of the big things.
Yes. So that's what I was thinking is like, for anybody listening to this episode and it's like, oh my gosh, she's describing somebody in my life right now. Get them this book. And don't give it to them and like shove it down their throat and be like, hey, fix it, you know. But like, I was listening to this podcast, you can share it with them so they can see if it resonates or whatever. But you know, how much is the book? I don't know.
$30.
It's $30. It's $30.
Yep. And it's, whenever people see it, the main objection that I get is they're like, why is it so thick? But I need to tell you that I used bigger font with bigger spacing and bigger margins, and there's over 100 doodles. So I did that to lessen cognitive overload, because whenever we're in a really heightened emotional state, like I don't want it to be super dense, really tiny words that feel overwhelming. So, you know, it's a quirky, fun, easy to digest book that shares my messy behind the scenes in a really honest way, and then also has tips and tricks that I've learned. And ultimately, my goal with this book and just in life is to bridge the communication gap between people who experience life with suicidality or simply are highly sensitive and those who don't, because there can be a really strong connection between them. I have one with my partner, but we've had to learn how to communicate and how to support each other, how to support ourselves, how to find that autonomy within the relationship. So if anyone listening thinks, oh my gosh, this sounds just like my partner, my loved one, my son, my daughter, whatever, I would say get the book and read it for yourself first, because there is a lot in this that is intended for supporters and can help with things like loving detachment, which is very, very challenging when you love someone who struggles this way, of wanting to fix, to control, to help. What can I do? Oh my God. And just draining yourself into this person or this relationship that feels like a black hole, and there's nothing you can do that's enough. And it's true. There's nothing you can do that is enough, because you aren't the problem. And so a lot of this book really helps reframe this in a way and put the experience in a way that people haven't really thought of it before. And that's my superpower, is taking these abstract concepts and putting words to them. So that way it's digestible.
And that's so beautiful. It's a wonderful resource to put out in the world, number one, and much needed, because like you found out, you go through and looking for resources and looking for, like, you got that curious, but if it's not from the perspective that's actually helpful, you know, that you can identify with, then, you know, it's not going to hit as hard as you would want it to. So I'm excited to dig into it just for myself, because you've basically described me, except for my stint with suicidality was very short, like because of what I do. And I'd gotten into suicide prevention and stuff well before it ever hit me. And then I'd never had an attempt or anything. And I was like deep. This happened within the last year. And it was one of those things that because I do what I do on a daily basis, when the thought hit me, I was at work, and it was just, I was ruminating on how insane I had gotten with noise and just certain noises, and just really setting me off. And I was like, I am such a toad to live with. Like, I am causing trauma in my household because I am so unbearable. Their lives will be so much better if I will just exit. And I caught it, and I was like, whoa. That was not an intrusive thought. I believe that. Ruh-roh raggies. I am in a pickle. And so it was just very much like a shit. Okay, we got to get a hold of this, and we got to do it now, because I think I'm causing them trauma now. What can go on next? And so it was very much we got to get a hold of this. And so, yeah, you have talked about a couple of things, and I have notes upon notes over here that I wanted to come back to.
Yes, please go for it.
I'm going to put my hand up for a second. It is 1:30. We're at the end of our scheduled time. Are you good to keep going?
Yep. Good to keep going. I could probably go. I have another 20 minutes in me before a kiddo comes home.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so you had a note to come back to the helping the cancer patient versus helping the person with a mental illness. So I wanted to honor that and come back to that discussion because, we're talking about how to help people.
I think that whenever I said make a note, because I want to talk more about this, that I ended up talking more about it in the moment. So I think that feels complete to me.
Okay, perfect. You talked about boundaries and how your partner, I can see how you paused when you were talking about this and where you were like, I can see how this sounds like he was not supportive, but it was what you needed in that moment. So many people, when they're trying to help the person who is suicidal, it's all or nothing. I don't know what to say, so I'm going to avoid it and I'm not going to do anything. And that's probably going to take care of itself. It's probably not. And we start telling ourselves these myths so that it makes us feel better about not doing something. So they're just looking for attention. They don't really mean it. If they really meant it, they would go ahead and do it and they're not going to talk about it. All these things that we tell ourselves to make us feel better for not actually getting in there and helping. Versus if they call, I have to respond. I need to check on them at all times. I need to, I cannot tell them no. That might be the final thing that pushes them over the edge. But what you brought in and what is so important is honoring boundaries. And you're doing no one favors if you are not taking care of yourself first. And so can you talk a little bit more about that? Like how that felt in the moment versus like how you came to accept it, stuff like that. Because I thought it was kind of beautiful at the moment. It's like, I can't be this for you. I can't do this part for you. I love you in my life. I want to support you. I need to go do this thing because I'm battling my own demons right now. And so I want to give you that space to figure it out for you, but I'll support you, but within these boundaries.
One of the things that helped a lot, and I have a handful of tips and tricks in the book specifically around this, but was my partner and I getting clear on what was and was not a true crisis. Because since everything felt so big to me, there were times that just a minor rejection, I was reacting in such a big way. And so he got to a point where he's like, I don't know when I need to step in because you're drowning, or when I need to say, you can do it. I love you. I'm here if you need me. Like, I don't know when it's a red alert. What's tough is that when it is a red alert, as the person who's struggling, it's very challenging to put words to it or to reach out.
Yeah.
So we came up with a code word or a code phrase.
Yes.
And
I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah. And we came up with this not when I was in a super suicidal state. It was when I was a little more grounded, which is a really great time to check in, right? Because whenever we're in the really activated state, if you come and you say, how can I help? What can I do to help? That open-ended question is enough for me to fucking shut down.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I knew, I would be doing it. Right.
Yeah.
So if instead it's as the supporter, witnessing your loved ones suffer and go through this, which is hell. But on the other side of it, because it is a storm and it will lift, even if slightly, opening up the conversation to say, hey, here's what I noticed. And to you, was that a true crisis? And if so, can we come up with a code word? For me, my sentence was, the alarms are going off. And what I meant by that is it really felt like in my body, all the alarms were going off, like the smoke alarms in a really tall building, and the only way out of this fire is to jump out. That's how it felt in my body. And so what was really powerful about the code word or the code phrase was it was helping me as the person who suffered with suicidality get clear on what was and was not a crisis. It helped me have a way to reach out. You know, if I'm feeling like I'm drowning, there was a way for me to actually reach my hand out and know that if I did, that person would be there to help. if they could, right? If they were able to, and that's another thing. So also on the other side of it, for my partner, we started to work together to build this communication and trust with each other, where he knew that if it was a true crisis, he didn't have to hover or helicopter parent me. He didn't have to worry that saying the wrong thing was going to shove me off the deep end or into the deep end. It was, she's going to say the alarms are going off if she needs me. That was one of the more helpful ways that we were able to start. He was able, well, both of us were able to start having those boundaries between what feelings belong to me versus him. Because a lot of times I would take other people going through life and enjoying their life and not struggling. It almost felt like an attack on me, because I'm like, that is so unfair. I have so much pain. What about me? What about me? And he finally had to realize that when he started to feel like my feelings were his feelings, that was a really clear indicator for him that he needed to step away and do something to recharge himself. He needed to go to an AA meeting. He needed to spend time with a friend. He needed to recharge himself. And in me seeing that, right? So at first it may have hurt my feelings of like, what, he needs time away from me. And maybe I probably overreacted. I probably was emotional, but by him staying really strong in him needing to take care of himself, it actually was modeling behavior that I had never seen before.
Yes.
I had never seen someone put themselves first and take care of their own health. And then that started to show me like, oh, maybe I need to do a little something of that. So that was a really important part of building those boundaries. And what my partner has really worked hard on is realizing that my emotional state when I'm really struggling has nothing to do with him. The way that I experience life is not his fault, and it's not his responsibility. And that's a really strong sentence for both parties to realize. Because when I'm really activated in a suicidal state, it can be really easy for me to think it's his job to fix this. I've watched enough romantic comedies my whole life. Where's the hero?
Yeah.
Come and Will Smith, where are you?
Right.
Come scoop me up with your big, strong, manly arms. And I would expect someone to rescue me. But upon realizing me feeling this way is not his fault and it's not his responsibility. And it's not that it's anyone's fault, right? And that's another thing. It's like, this is how I experience life. So now what? I now know that this is how I experience life. So now what can we do with this? So having those boundaries helped us work together as a team rather than it being me versus him or him trying to fix, right? And that was another challenging part, is he would want to help and he would use humor or, try to be silly or try to come in and swoop in and be the hero that I wanted him to be, but then was mad when he tried to be. Absolutely impossible. But I oftentimes felt that when he was trying to swoop in or be funny or try to make me quote unquote feel better, it was perpetuating this belief that I was unlovable when I was in that messy suicidal state. And so that took a lot of communication between us as well, for me to say, I may not know what I need, but I'm learning what I don't need. And I don't need you to try to make me laugh. And I don't need you to do this or this. Now, I'm not saying like, don't trigger me. I'm simply saying in those states, that's not quite what I need. And what we've learned, the most helpful thing that he can do is to help me with food when I'm in those like really, really active suicidal states, or they thankfully don't happen anymore, but I still can deal with really deep depression and stuff, or burnout. And we've learned like what the expectation is between us. We've learned how to communicate really clearly and learned how to look at it as, rather than this is a problem to solve or I'm a problem to solve, of this is a thing that happens sometimes. Sometimes thunderstorms come in and we're going to work together to survive it. And there are some times that I need to say my sentence and say, the alarms are going off. I'm drowning here. And he will step in and he will do his best to figure shit out, right? Because sometimes I'm like, I don't know what I need, but try something, which I know is a lot of pressure to put on someone. But by working together as a team, two individuals working together, I feel like it becomes less of a me versus him and more of a us, not necessarily us versus the world, but it's just like we're going hand in hand on this messy journey. And for some reason, I get way more storm clouds than he does, which is fucked. But here we go.
Yeah. I like to tell myself, I don't think it's true, but I like to tell myself that we experience more storm clouds, but that also means that when the highs are there, we also experience it in a stronger way versus.
I think that's true.
Do you think it's true?
100%.
I mean, I don't want to shame somebody else because they might not feel things as strongly as I do, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, as a sensitive person, I do think there's some truth in it.
Yeah, no shame for however anyone experiences life, but I can definitely say that when I come out of a dark, depressive episode, I hear the birds sing. And that's how I know I'm coming out of the episode, is I can actually hear the birds sing. And I'll have these moments of like, God, life is really quite beautiful. And these little birdies, these precious little birdies are just barfing up their little half-eaten worms for their birdie babies. God damn it, look at those clouds, right? And it's like this moment of falling in love with life and feeling it so intensely and so deeply.
Yeah.
And when those moments happen, my partner's learned he looks at me and he goes, "You can hear the birds again, can't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can."
Yeah. Yeah. And that's beautiful in its own right. Okay, well, we have taken well above the allotted time that we thought we were, but that's perfect. I'm fine with it. This will be a two-parter, and that is perfect with me. So go out and get her book. This is Jen Butler. She has written a book, Volume Control, a guidebook for highly sensitive people in a loud and spiky world. Did I get that correct?
You sure did.
I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited about it. She's a speaker. She's a writer. If you want her to come and address your folks, please find her. She's on TikTok and Instagram at Jen Butler Says, and then website is jenbutlersays.com, correct?
Yes. And I would say that listeners, if you decide to buy this book because you think that a person in your life would really benefit from it or resonate with it, that may be a way to hand it to them. Could be something like, hey, there's this comedian, content creator who experiences life in a lot of the same ways that you say you do. So I thought maybe you'd enjoy reading this.
Yeah.
Rather than like, you should read this. I just think like, how would I be receptive to someone handing me a book?
Yeah.
Like, I really enjoy this. I read the intro and she's super funny or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
Hopefully that can help.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna dig into it with me and my husband because we're both highly sensitive people in different ways. So we could probably both learn from it. So we'll have a little Jen Butler therapy when you're not around.
Excellent. Perfect. I love it. She lives on.
I love it. I love it.
Wonderful.
All right. So any parting messages for anyone listening to the podcast or anything, lessons learned, something?
Hearing that most of your listeners are those who might support people who struggle with suicidality, I want to say thank you to those people who love so loyally and so deeply and really, really want to help, but don't know how to help and might feel like, am I overstepping? Am I understepping? There is no perfect way to do this, just like there is no perfect way to do the human experience. But I will say thank you, because your person might not be in the place to truly say thank you because they don't have that love to give to themselves, nor do they have to give it to you. But on a deep level, I appreciate you. And I'm so grateful now in hindsight to those folks who supported me. But ultimately, you do have to take care of yourself. So I think looking at what's some of the advice that you find yourself giving to your loved one who's struggling, are you taking that advice yourself? Mm-hmm. Because it can be really easy to empty our cup into the person who's struggling, and then we become an activated version of ourselves or a less emotionally mature version of ourselves. And then you're both just acting from a defensive, activated place, and it's ugly and gross. And realistically, you just might need a nap, or you need to make sure you've eaten, or you need to go and watch a movie by yourself because you haven't done that in 5 years. So really lean into what it is that you need to take care of yourself, because by doing that, it'll anchor you more into, I think, your heart and into your body. And that's an easier place to show up from. The end.
The end. That was perfect. I just love Jen so much. She's awesome. I had so much fun interviewing her. If Jen's story gave you permission to feel a little bit more human today, share this episode with somebody else who might need that too. Rate and review the show. Guys, it helps me so much when you take just a few minutes to do that. And it helps more people find these conversations that actually talk about what it's like to live with these big feelings. Now, I want you to be a little introspective right now and think about what's something that you've carried for way too long that you're ready to start unpacking. Hopefully this episode gave you a little bit more of a push to start doing that. I would love to hear about that. DM me, tag me, comment, wherever, send a carrier pigeon, I don't care. But let me know what that might be for you. It's just interesting to hear what it brings up for people who listen. Join me next week as I sit down with author and speaker Rachel Fox, who shares her journey of being undiagnosed for 25 years with PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and how she found her way from rage, depression, and despair to healing. We talk about how she went from rage before period in a Google search to discovering a therapy that changed her life. If you or someone you love has ever been dismissed, misdiagnosed, or made to feel crazy for having big emotions, this episode is one you may not want to miss. So join us next week where we continue to learn how to intervene with ease.